So adventures in babysitting. Why did I pick that title? Because many times as we go through life and in our professional lives, we feel that we're babysitting our team members. Anybody ever feel that way? Yes. All the time. Sometimes I feel like I've been babysat too much. I'm sure we've all felt that as well. And why is that? It's because that's a failure of leadership. That is a management situation, not a leadership situation. Right, so what I want to talk to you about today and give you some pointers on, maybe some things you can take with you, is how to move from a manager to a leader. And also how to be a subordinate leader, because it's not just about being the boss. And you'll hardly ever hear me use that term boss, because I don't like that term. I like leadership. I like those types of terms. But what really is a leader? A leader has many different definitions, but one of the ones I like is somebody who influences people or a person for an outcome by giving them motivation, giving them the tools and technology they need to accomplish a mission and grow our organization. You didn't hear me say telling people what to do, because that's a bad leader. That's a manager. A manager manages tasks. A leader manages outcomes, right? So there are 4 key components that I want you to think about when you're dealing with your subordinates and you're dealing with your leadership, because you must lead upwards and downwards. We always talk about leadership to our subordinates, but what about leadership to our superiors as well, because that's extremely important as well. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But 4 things that impact a leader and the situation. One is the leader, obviously. One is the follower or team member. The third is the situation. And the fourth is communication. So let's talk a little bit about the leader itself. As a leader, it's not your job to tell people what to do. It's your job to give them an outcome that you want them to achieve. And what I mean by that is by giving your team, your subordinate leaders, your team members, an outcome that you want to receive, and then give it to them. Have the trust in your team to be able just to give them what you desire. Now you're going to put parameters around that, tasks, conditions, and standards. I'm sure we've all heard of that before. So you give them the task, conditions, and standards, and let them come up with the plan. And then of course, you'll course correct that plan as necessary. Does that mean by giving that the plan that you aggregate all of your responsibility? Absolutely not. You're totally responsible as a leader, and they're also responsible, but you never give away your authority to make those decisions, right? So you give them, and then you correct along the way. Why? Why not just tell them what to do? First of all, you're not growing your team. Secondarily, you can't tell everybody what to do all the time. And thirdly, you want to build relationships. And leadership is all about one thing. It's building relationships. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that later. But as a follower, what's your responsibility? It's your responsibility to execute the commander's or leader's intent. So within that framework, the commander's going to tell you what to do as far as what the outcome they want to achieve, but it's your responsibility to come up with a plan. And by doing that effectively, again, you'll build a relationship with your leader and your fellow team members. Does that mean that if the plan goes awry, you say, wasn't my plan, I'm not responsible for it? Or even worse, how many of you thought about this? Hey, my leader changed my plan fundamentally, so I hope we fail. What good does that do? It's a failed mission. And our responsibility at the end of the day is to complete the task and mission appropriately. So that's a lot of ego there. We're going to talk a little bit about ego. But let's really talk about the situation. Now, I'm sure everyone's seen movies, war movies, where the sergeant tells a private to charge a machine gun nest. Very common. Everybody's seen that? Of course they have, right? That's a really good leadership tactic when the person can't talk back or in that situation. But I can't remember the last time I was in Publix and I had to charge a machine gun nest, right? So it really doesn't apply most of the time. It's good for the military, but it's not really good for the corporate environment or situations in your personal life. I was a consultant for 25 years. I still am a consultant. And I used to travel Monday through Friday every week. And I would come home, pull out that white glove, go across that refrigerator. There's dust on the refrigerator, Donna. That's my wife. Why isn't the kids' room cleaned? Why isn't this done? Why isn't that done? And literally they would look at me and say, oh man, you don't even live here, right? So that leadership style, as well as of giving them the third degree and interrogating them, didn't work either, right? So you really need to adjust your leadership based on the situation. And then lastly, communication is very, very important, right? What's the best way to communicate? Like we are right now. I can see your body language. I can see your nonverbal cues, and you can see mine. If I see you have your arms crossed like this, your chin's down, I can tell you're not receptive to what I'm asking you or what we're talking about. But if I see you with your your hand's open, you're leaning forward, I can tell you're receptive. So if you are shut down on me, whose responsibility is that for communication? It's my responsibility, right? Because I'm responsible for making sure that you understand what I'm asking about and making sure that you're understanding what I desire. Not your responsibility to understand it if you don't. So you want to make sure that you're communicating appropriately. What's the worst way to communicate? The absolute worst. Right here, the cell phone or email. I remember one time we had a young lady in my organization who needed to go to the doctor. So she sent an email to her boss. Hey, I need to go to the doctor at 8:30. He replied with one letter, Y, A, B, C, D, Y, right? So she took that as an affront. Why are you questioning me? Why can't I go to the doctor? How dare you tell me what I can and can't do about my own mental or physical health? He meant yes, right? I don't know why he couldn't put Y-E-S, why he just had to type Y, but he meant yes. But it caused a firestorm in our organization, and they really got into it, but it was all about miscommunication. So when you are communicating, I'd like you to think about a few things here. We have a thing called a 5-point contingency plan. I know you know what that is, right? So whenever you're sending out an email, you want to put 5 things in there. The who needs to do the task, the what needs to be accomplished, the why, the when and the where, and if possible, the how. The how is a longer conversation, but it can be put in there as well. But let's talk about the why. Very, very important. How many people think that you can tell your people, hey, I want you to do a task and not tell them why? You can't. There's always time to tell your people why they're doing something. And why is this important? Because not only do they need to understand the task completely and your intent, but also gives them an opportunity to give you feedback. As in, well, boss, maybe this is a different way of doing it, and you should listen. I've been a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt for a few years now. I've been doing Jiu-Jitsu for 15 years, right? So I know everything about Jiu-Jitsu, right? Does that mean that the white belt who just started has no value to add to me? What if he's a Division I wrestler and could tell me something that I've never seen before, right? So you can't shut yourself off to feedback unnecessarily. And I will tell you this from my time in the military, that the newest employee to the CEO are all equally as important when it comes to feedback. You've got to listen to them and take that feedback appropriately, or you're going to miss something, because frankly, I don't know about you guys, but I don't know everything. So listen to your people and always tell them the why. And it's extremely important. But also, what if you have a weak leader? I think we've all had weak leaders, right? You hate them, right? You can't stand a weak leader because you don't think they deserve to be there. They got promoted before you, or they have a higher education. They just walked into the organization and jumped above you. That causes resentment. But you know what that's from? That's from ego. So what's your responsibility as a junior leader or subordinate to your leader? Anybody know? It's to support them 100%. I just say 95%, I just say 50%. Support them 100% and help them grow as leaders. You may say, oh man, I don't play the game. I'm not here to be liked, I'm here to do my job. Well, if you're not playing the game, you're not in the game. And if you're not in the game, you can't win the game. So everyone should play the game. Now, does that mean, be a suck up? No, but it also means build relationships. So help your weak leaders by building that relationship. Why is it even important to build relationships? Because if you're not building a relationship, it's either stale, which is not good, or it's eroding or destroying relationships. And I will tell you, there's many times in my life I look back with shame on how I eroded relationships with sending stupid emails or being curt with somebody when I should have been building them. And you don't build relationships with the people you like. It's easy to build a relationship with the people you like. You build relationships with the people you hate, the people who you cannot stand. Phil, down the hallway, who always cooks fish for lunch in the microwave, you hate him, right? You hate that guy, right? But you need to build that relationship. He might not be open to it, but you should not stop trying. Because one of these days, and it's not so much quid pro quo, it's the fact of the matter is you're going to need something for somebody. So if I went out to ask you, said, hey, can you help me with this? If I have a strong relationship with you, even though we don't get along, we don't hang out, will you be more willing to help me or less willing to help me? You'll be more willing. But I'll guarantee if we have a bad relationship, you'll be much, much less willing to help me. And secondarily, it just does everybody good. It makes you feel good to have a good relationship with people. You don't avoid them in the hallway. You don't avoid having meetings with them, things of that nature. So build that relationship. And to build that, ask earnest and honest questions at all times. And you've got to mean it. You can't say, well, I just want to ask a question because that's what Loyd told me to do. You've got to genuinely care about what they're thinking about and how they're feeling. So let me wrap this up by saying this one last thing. There are two types of leaders in the world. There's transformational leaders and transactional leaders. A transactional leader is, if you do this, I will give you that. If we do this, we get this reward. And that's okay. But there's also transformational leaders. And these are the people that I feel that most people should want to become and aspire to. And a transformational leader is somebody who says, trust me, we're going to get through this together. You may have an M&A, a merger and acquisition. You may have a divestiture. You may have a layoff, right? So who are you going to trust? A transactional leader who's only going to give you something when you give them something? Or someone who's been through that before, you built a relationship and you can really trust? I personally aspire to be a transformational leader, not a transactional leader. So again, leadership is all about communication. And I hope today that you've enjoyed this. You could take some of these little nuggets they gave you and maybe look inside yourself and make sure you're a better leader as well. Is that fair? So hey, thanks for joining me today. Thank you for your time.